I
Get
think we
started?
get
Drew did,
one out of every
actually.
3 years
Well, and
on
I
average.
got started at Drew. Evenings,
No.
pretend it again.
It's 5:30, so I'll go ahead and call the administrative meeting, Plan Commission for March to order. I think Jackie's out today. Tammy, can you go ahead and call the roll for us?
Actually, just out for today. I'm just getting a dry run. What it would be like in the near future. So I'll go ahead and call the roll. I don't see Julie Thomas here today. Dee Owens,
Yes, I'm here, but my camera, it won't come on.
okay. Tron and Wright Randolph,
Here.
Greg Garitas.
Here.
Gary Pittsburgh,
I'm here.
Margaret Clements. Here. Jeff Morris,
Here.
Cheryl Munson,
Here.
Edward Ullman.
Yep.
We have 8 members and a quorum.
Thank you, Tammy. First item tonight under administrative business is case SIA 22-1, and I think that was yours.
Okay, quick question for staff. Do we remember where the ability to allow panelists to share their video are? We will need.
If you go to participants, there's like 3 dots sometimes. You can promote it then. So.
Okay, well,
Allow panelists to start video.
thank you. We didn't blare on the screen. Okay.
3 dots there.
Yeah. Are you able to turn your video on now? We saw her briefly.
Okay. All right, thank you, Dee.
Okay.
Okay, so this one is a voting item under administrative business. So this is a request to reduce and extend a financial guarantee for a subdivision. This is a subdivision improvement agreement. So this is for Derby Pines Major Subdivision. So the Derby Pines Major Subdivision, the subdivision improvement agreement included 2 new public roads, a connector road, sidewalks, street trees, stormwater detention, and landscaping. So I'll pull the plat near the bottom for a quick visual. So I think this was approved and been final platted in maybe 2021, I want to say. So they have had the original SCA was signed on March 15th, 2022. The total for public improvements that were required to be bonded for was $297,928.47. So the guarantee would have a 1-year expiration. There have been inspections by the Highway Department and stormwater. Approximately 50% of the public improvements have been completed. So they are requesting to remove the amount from the reduction in order to renew it. So they would be the new estimate provided to staff that has been reviewed by Highway is $128,858.06. That's a reduction of $169,070.41. So the list of reductions include improvements to each of the categories listed, with the largest change being the completion of East Holland Drive, which is a connector road to another subdivision that's still in progress here.
I'm just going to interrupt and say Julie Thomas is present and needs to be elevated to. Sorry.
Thank you, Margaret. No, appreciate that. So in your exhibits, there are 3 inspection reports, and you can get an idea of what has been already completed or what still needs work. So the petitioners are requesting to reduce the total amount and also extend. They provided a new letter of credit that would extend through 2024. There are standards of approval in order to reduce a subdivision improvement, a financial guarantee, and also to extend it. All of the conditions are met except 2, one of which is seed condition So the first one is that they provide as-built plans. So the highway department has requested these plans. So the staff recommendation is approving the financial guarantee subdivision improvement agreement reduction and extension request. The two conditions that are included are prior to the release of the funds, the petitioner must submit as-built to the highway department for the Holland Drive connection that includes roadway, sidewalks, and street trees. And also as-built for the remainder of the site and what will be required at the time of request for the final release. And the second condition of approval is that the petitioner submit an affidavit stating no liens or outstanding payments exist for the scope of work in order to receive a reduction, including Holland Drive. And that comes directly from one of the requirements of the financial guarantee. Oh, thank you. Does anybody have any questions on this SIA reduction and extension request?
I have a question, and it's just because we've been seeing kind of refunds and such higher frequency, and I've still only been involved in a handful of them. So I guess I'm curious if there's any kind of like 101 of what's really being asked outside of the refund and what is needed in some type of like future meeting. So like we can understand this whole refund process a bit more.
Not
Well, not a
necessarily.
refund, but it's releasing the funds. In a sense. And
Reducing the letter of credit that's on file.
I've seen these more frequently over the last couple of years. And, you know, it's not my wheelhouse, so I'm gonna defer to, you know, others that have comments today, but it'd be nice if we were able to kind of have like a
We
quick
actually did
101 of these in
Yeah.
the future.
I was listening to the minutes from, I believe it might have been, I can't remember if it was the January or February meeting, but we did cover that. And so I can let you know which meeting that was and you can maybe review that part.
That would be nice. Yeah, it just kind of, it just seems like we're seeing some more of these more frequently, and I can only recall like a handful, so.
I think that was the meeting, Tammy, where legal weighed in on what we could and couldn't do in terms of a refund.
This is different. This is covered under the subdivision control ordinance versus the ability to refund fees. So this comes directly from chapter 858. It's a requirement for any subdivision that has public improvements. So they get a certain time period in order to complete those, and if they don't, the county has the funds to be able to. Yes.
So highway department, drainage, full staff is going to some of you got here.
We've agreed that 50% is completed, but the highway department still wants to see the as-built plans
Right.
before they reduce it.
Gotcha.
Want me to synthesize my understanding of the situation. So and correct me where I'm wrong, okay? So instead of bonds, that's where the builder has to go in, pay insurance, and it covers a bigger payout if they fail to perform. We have asked for a letter of credit, and it's really burdensome on the builder. And if they meet specifications along the way, we can free up their money. Which is actually, we've asked them for more than what they would have paid to get it a bond to ensure their performance. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. That's it.
Well, I mean, I'm familiar with kind of the restraints it's on by having that capital kind of tied into this bond or escrow or what have you. I just think, you know, it'd be interesting because, you know, that's more finance driven kind of issues of how it benefits the county. And so, you know, obviously I defer to staff and others like Commissioner Thomas. And I get the scenario. It's just, you know, it's just kind of a cursory understanding of it. It'd be neat if there's any information out there you think would be helpful. And yeah, Tammy, I'll review that as well.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes, thank you. I have just a general statement, which is this is in the same area where there have been problems with road design, construction, and some karst features, which concern me. But the question I have is really obvious, and you may have said it while I was being moved from attendee to panelist. So I understand that highway and MS4 operator have okayed the new amounts, but are they okay with doing this just in general?
We have received support. This is should be a standard operation for subdivisions with public improvements, but Paul is on the line, so he would be available to weigh in if you'd like.
That'd be great. I just want to make sure that all the concerns are addressed. Thank you.
And actually also Kelsey is here as well. So Paul or Kelsey, you have to be able to comment on this reduction.
Okay, I'm unmuted. What was the question again?
So I think Commissioner Thomas was interested if the highway department was supportive of reducing the financial guarantee and extending it for another year.
Yes, they've finished up the Holland Drive portion. I think they have yet to put the final surface on the side street there, but yeah, everything's been going well and the sidewalks have been constructed. And they've been doing a good job, so we don't see a problem with reducing the amount.
Okay, are there any further questions for Ann?
So I have a question about what I think are the storm drains shown on page 19 of the packet. And I'm just curious if the what's shown in the photographs is of the condition that everybody would expect them to be in. Right there, those.
So there is still work to be done. We can
There you
go
go.
up to the report and see if these are satisfactory, if this is identified as an area that they're still working on.
Okay.
Okay. So we kind of highlighted, this was the estimate. So let's see, items in yellow are to be fully released and items in blue are being reduced. So let's go to. So they're only being reduced and not necessarily being
Okay.
recognized as fully completed.
Thank you. Thank you.
And there is active construction still on the site. There's still active work, so it's still under the review of the MS4 assistant. So they still complete site inspections for preventing runoff.
So we can approve this today.
We can.
So is it time for a motion?
I believe so I don't see any other questions.
Okay, so in the matter of SIA 22-1 Derby Pines Major Subdivision Financial Guarantee Reduction and Extension of the Performance Period, I move that we approve this. Subject to prior to the release of funds, the petitioner must submit as-bills to the Highway Department for the Holland Drive connection, roadway, sidewalks, street trees. As-bills for the remainder of the site will be required at the time of request for release. And number two, the petitioner submit an affidavit stating no liens or outstanding payments is the scope of work to receive a reduction, including Holland Drive. Does the person who second the motion agree? Okay, so.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Vote in favor is a vote to approve a financial guarantee reduction and extension of the performance bond for the Derby Pines Major Subdivision. And this is subject to two conditions. One is dealing with the as-built to be submitted to the Highway Department for Holland Drive currently. And then the remainder of the as-built being required at the time of the request for the release. And the second condition is that petitioner submit an affidavit stating no liens or outstanding payments exist for the scope of work to receive a reduction, including Holland Drive. We'll go ahead and call the vote. Edward Ullman,
Yes.
Cheryl Munson,
Yes.
Jeff Morris,
Yes.
Margaret Clements.
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford,
Yes.
Bernie Veritas.
Yes.
Ron Enright,
Yes.
Dee Owens,
Yes.
and Julie Thomas.
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0. I wanted to also, before we get started on the next task, is to introduce Chris Cochran. He is our city, what is your official title? Is it city representative, I guess, to the plan commission? So just wanted to let you know.
Thank you, Tammy. Our next item on the list, SIA 23-1, has been continued to next time. So I believe that leads us straight into the CDO work session, Tammy.
We are not sure yet. We're going to do a site inspection for, oh, I'm sorry, for the CDO work session. CDO work session. Share screen. All right, so gonna do a little CDO discussion. About 10 or 15 minutes is what I'm hoping to get from you all. Jackie helped put this slide presentation together. And this is mostly a reminder that we are gonna have the focus group on March 23rd from 5:30 to 6:45. It'll be an hour and 15 minutes. There will be 3 different groups. All of you have been assigned to a group. I'll just flash that up here in just a moment. It will only be virtual on Zoom, and we've already updated the CDO website to include all 3 different links for each of those different meetings that will be held consecutively, and we will be recording those. As a reminder, these are the groups that we've got you all assigned to. I think we got most of your all's first choice for groups. What we want to do this evening is staff has started to draft some PowerPoints and come up with some focused topics to cover during this meeting. What we're wanting to do is each staff member will be leading a section. We'll do like a brief presentation of the CDO, where we are in the process, and then the goals of like each of these different groups. And so what we're wanting to get from the Plan Commission is maybe what are the focus topics we should be focusing on for each of these. And so I'm gonna, what I don't want you to do is to focus on the details. We're just throwing out a few examples of how we can guide the discussion for the public and for yourselves if you'd like to provide the input. But we kind of want you to let us know what you want the public to get out of this meeting. And so I'm going to kind of flash up a few things. And like I said, don't get caught up in the details. These are like broad overview examples. What we're wanting to think about is the big topics, like what else should we be including into our presentations? What else should we be asking the public about these different topics? So the first one I'm going to bring up is the environmental review, where we discuss the watershed topics for Lake Monroe and for Lake Rippey. One of the discussion topics we thought to include was proposing to consolidate areas 3 and 4, which currently have like more of an 18% slope restriction, and merging that into area 2 to be all 15% slope. So we would only have an eco area 1 and eco area 2. This is something we've talked about at ORC. Another topic could be new restrictions needed around Lake Monroe or Lake Griffey. So we're kind of fishing for some input from you all as to like perhaps, and I'm gonna throw it out there that I thought that if you could submit something, I think by April or March 22nd, that would give us enough time to incorporate any ideas that you might have to engage the public. We can incorporate slides and information. So the Environmental Review Committee, we're hoping to focus mostly on Lake Monroe, things you can and can't do in there, things to help protect the slopes, prevent nutrient loading in the lake watershed there. Julie Thomas has her hand raised.
Yeah, I really appreciate being able to review this in advance, no pun intended, environmental review. But I think a couple of things would be really helpful for the public. And I think one of them is, I think you've incorporated it here, which is what would change, like what do we have now, what would be different? But the why isn't there. And if it's something where we've heard from a number of community members that this is important, or planning staff feels that it will be quicker to address these kinds of developments if we make X change, whatever the reason is for the change, I think would be really helpful.
Okay.
For the people to know, and maybe even a little bit of background, not like everything that's ever happened, but just some general background, like why do we have an eco area? What is its purpose? Just general info might be useful. Thank you.
All right, another portion that we were planning to add into the environmental review was discussing Lake Lemon and a watershed protection area there. I don't think we have ever thought that it would be the same as the eco overlay. This isn't a drinking water source for us. But we have had feedback from the Lake Lemon Sea Conservancy District and other members out there, or landowners out there. So discussion topics for this area could be what restrictions are appropriate, such as percent slope, setbacks from the lake, and then how do we create, or how do we avoid creating nonconformities while protecting the lake? So, you know, getting into that lake setback, do we want to have a slope restriction like in the eco where it may prevent driveways or a view of the lake, or so people aren't able to just wipe out all the vegetation to have a view, which is kind of, you know, our eco for Lake Monroe and Griffey do that right now currently, but we have nothing like that at Lake Lemon. So get your wheels spinning of the environmental topics. Again, we'll have an hour and 15 minutes with the public. Got this meeting kind of set. So yes.
Who's responsible for Lake Lemon? Is it City of Bloomington property? I know the lake is governed by Corps of Engineers. Griffey's governed by City of Bloomington. Is Lake Lemon also?
Yes, City of Bloomington, but it's in our jurisdiction.
Right, I get that. I swear.
And then the Lake Lemon Conservancy District kind of plays a role out there as well. But
Is the Conservancy District appointed body by City of Bloomington, or is it residential?
sure how that works out there.
I think it'd be important to know that as we proceed.
You want that included?
Well, I think those people are key stakeholders.
Yeah.
So as we begin to consider this, I definitely think we should have formal input
Mhm.
from those folks.
Correct. Yeah, and we had some of them at our in-person event that we had back in January. I can't, no, was it December? When did we last have our?
December.
It was December. Yeah, so we did have two. We had Adam Casey from, was employed by Lake Lemon Conservancy, I believe, and then one of the other members from the board was out.
Lester was at sea.
Okay.
And just one more quick question, if I might. I think Lake Lemon at one time was designated as secondary water source for the city, or was that Griffey?
Both.
Both.
But, if you think that's for free ash from a Superfund site.
Right. I just think if that's still a designation, that should be included in all the information for consideration.
Like, it's kind of deemed unviable for various reasons, so it's no longer considered a water source, the sole water source for Blooming is like.
I know it's the sole, but I didn't know if this was still considered as a secondary.
I can't cite the source, but I've read it somewhere recently. It was removed from ever being a reservoir, so we can find that source for you.
Okay, I don't patronize Lake Lemon and I'd ask, I don't know.
There's a plaque at the Winter Springs Nature Park with all that information on it, but I can't remember it off the top of my head.
They got it.
And if it's on a plaque, by God, you gotta know that that's the gospel right there. You don't put it on a plaque, if it's not in this.
No, that's.
Tells the history of Winter Springs.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna switch gears to the next group. The focus group for this one is construction review. And this is an example that we could maybe cover a few of these. So if you have an idea of what's the hot topic that you want to ask about, is tourist homes, is it home-based business, or in this case, we just picked restaurant, cafe, coffee shop, and then restaurant drive-through. And what we would be kind of doing here is reviewing where these are conditional, which would go to the Board of Zoning Appeals, or permitted with standards. And then also going over those different standards for the restaurant, cafe, coffee shop. In this case, we actually have a design standard built into it to limit the size. And we have the restaurant drive-through. So we could review permitted with standards for certain uses, and then also kind of look at the different zones where these are permitted. So in the case of the coffee shop cafe, it will be additional in, say, the Harrodsburg area, the RC1 that is proposed for this area. It's the rural community. I want to say it's rural community zoning. We haven't got the names ironed out yet. But in this case, they go to the Board of Zoning Appeals if they want to coffee cafe shop. Again, don't get too bogged down by the details. This is an example we can use. And if any of you want to propose a very specific use to review or the standards to review, we'd love to hear about that. Again, we've got the LB zone that we can focus on where it's permitted, and then also the general business zone where it would be permitted with standards. So
this isn't really construction review, this is a use table.
that's what we agree. We're looking at some of those design standards within it, but then we also had discussing concerns with potential current standards, like the site plan review with one of these commercial type things, and asking questions about, should we have parking minimums or should we have parking maximums? What kinds of landscaping should be required at these types of uses? What types of setbacks? Should we have different setbacks from commercially zoned versus residentially zoned? Drive-throughs, are those, what kind of standards do you want to see in a drive-through restaurant versus a restaurant cafe? So we're looking to hopefully come up with some other examples. And if you have an example that you think you'd like to get input from the public on, that's what we're kind of looking for. Yes, Jerry.
Because you said rural communities, it got my brain started. Not sure about how this would apply to the city of Bloomington, so I'm just going to speak to Ellisville. When we start considering those, should we look at the standards that we want in terms of how they're going to dovetail into what already exists in the rural community of Ellisville? And maybe even like Smithville or the other rural communities, but specifically Ellisville because it can annex and get bigger, as we've seen in the past.
I don't know if that our zone is even anywhere near Ellisville. I think we really designated that in Steinsville, Smithville, and Harrisburg mostly.
Okay, well, Ellisville started out as a rural community.
Yeah, and it had it still has an overlay over it.
Right. But I just think when you get into businesses, restaurants and all that stuff,
And
you know, it might be appropriate to know where they're going.
Mhm. Yeah, and like that use table had them in LB and GB zoning, so any of that LB, GB around Ellisville would be applicable, as long as it met all the standards.
Well, they're in the middle of the reimagine, or is it Ellisville, or the revision Ellisville plan?
Vision, Ellisville. This vision.
But they're in the midst of that, so like, there's a lot of moving parts, so I think they're just getting to the final stages to start presenting it at the council and plan commission in the town, so
Right.
I think Gary's absolutely right, we just seen some recent volunteer annexation with the Cook factory. You know, just following the town, it sounds like, you know, they're trying to encourage more volunteer annexation, so understanding that, I think, is really good for us to kind of plan for, you know, what's gonna occur on the fringe of the town. And
Right, and I think we should be very deliberate about including, because we still have gaps where county zoning transitions to town zoning, then back to county zoning. You know, so I just feel like it's important to drag them into the conversation. And I mean, to an extent, you are going to literally be dragging them into the conversation, because I don't think they will look around and go, hey, they're redoing the county CDO, let's go see what they're talking about. I think we need to be very deliberate about that. And because of their own projects,
yeah,
not because they're unwilling, but just because they have their own irons in the fire.
So do you think staff should come up with a focus or a focus topic dealing with Ellisville within wrapped up in this one, or would that be maybe more applicable for the economic development
No, I think in this,
in the construction?
yeah, I think I definitely.
So maybe pick a few areas that are near Ellisville and focus on those as far as
Right.
uses and design standards.
What I'd like to see is us cooperate with them so we don't have another huge apartment complex with the right turn only exit out of it. Just for some reason, that just seemed like not a good idea.
We're gonna shift gears and go to the next one, which is the economic development. Again, don't focus on the details here, but we'll be presenting this table and discussing goals for the county in terms of overall proposed versus existing zoning, and other options to discuss would possibly be population trends, business trends, and then ensuring the use table is adequate. So again, we're going to bring this use table up a lot, I think, during this process, because we really do want to get some feedback in it on it. And then the process for review. So staff level for certain items versus plan commission versus board of zoning appeals for certain types of development, and just looking at use table and where that's most relevant. I think that might have been, yeah, so this is my last slide. So we're just mostly looking for a little bit of input as to what these focus groups should be focusing on. Any specific topics or uses that you want to see brought up.
I'm just curious about in the environmental group, a discussion about critical drainage areas. I think that's important. We have different types of standards that are more strenuous with the release rates in those areas. So developers have to kind of do a bit more to reduce kind of the stormwater runoff. But I think we should kind of bridge the gap and hear what the public has to think about that, even though that's kind of a stormwater and a drainage board thing. I don't know if Kelsey Petone is with us, if she has any comments to add, but I think general feedback from the public would be a good thing.
I just have one general comment, and this will be the first time really that the public has had an opportunity to comment on this CDO. And yet various interest groups have had multiple kind of single opportunities, single vested interest opportunities to comment on all of these issues. And I would strive for equity in terms of if a certain interest group gets 4 opportunities to meet with planning staff on these issues, the public should have 4 opportunities to meet with the planning staff on these issues. So that's just a general comment.
And I saw that Antonio had raised your hand.
Kelsey, cannot hear you if you are.
Since she's talking.
Yeah, Kelsey, if you are talking, we are unable to hear you. I don't know if she's.
Hello.
Hi, Kelsey.
I'm not a panelist right now. I had to change computers. Thank you. Okay. Appreciate it. Regarding the critical drainage areas, those regulations are covered under chapter 761, and I've had discussions with planning staff regarding cross-referencing within the new CDO. I'd be happy to discuss that part of the drainage ordinance with anyone who, is interested in how it relates to the CDO. If you'd like me to, provide any information or attend a meeting, just let me know and I'd be happy to do that.
Thanks, Kelsey.
I think that's great. Thanks, Kelsey. Anything we can do to help educate the public is great.
Ms. Munson, did you have a comment?
I was just particularly interested in the population slide that was several before this. And I'm just wondering,
This one?
Yes.
Or this is more about the percent of acreage
right,
that we have change.
can you make that available?
Yeah.
To me, just send me the slide deck and I'll find it.
Mhm. Yeah,
Thank you.
and we're hoping to, I think, have a part of this presentation available to the public even before the meeting, so they have the time to digest this as we create it.
Right, I wanted to study this, thank you.
Yeah, Tammy, that was gonna be my question also. Could you send this to all of us so that we kind of have a.
Yeah, once we have a better, like I said, we're very much in a draft format at the moment, so once we have a few more details inserted in and we've incorporated your feedback into it, then.
Do you have anything else on this, Tammy, or was that?
No, that is it.
And to clarify, you wanted our feedback by March 22nd, correct?
I think that seems reasonable.
Okay.
So that will give us a little bit of time. March 22nd, that's the day before.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah. So,
Sooner would be better.
There might be better.
so would you specifically tell us what you want?
I mean, if you have examples of things that you want to get public input on,
Okay,
whether that be specific uses or specific design standards, incorporated in the standards, kind of looking over our ordinance and matching it to the draft zoning map. If there's a hot spot of an area that you think we should be looking at and seeing if the uses are compatible, that is also yes.
I think, and I think this was mentioned last month as well, but on that last spreadsheet chart you had pulled up with numbers on it was shown. At least for me and for some others, some visual and map of some sort that kind of shows where the differences are. Maybe it's already out there somewhere and I don't know about it, it's on Neil. But that may be helpful, or at least, some of them, like the airport one, all you need is a map for just the airport, so some of them might be easier than others, but I think that a map of where those changes are could be very helpful.
So a current map and a proposed map, so people can see them side by
Yeah, or
side.
even an overlay just highlighting, hey, this is, red is where it's being changed negatively, green is where it's being changed positively, whatever. You know. Just.
And makes our maps, see what she can come up with.
Further questions before we move on to unfinished business? Okay, thank you, Tammy. That was very helpful. Drew, it looks like you're up next, with REZ 22-12, the Ralston rezone from RE1 to. That's easy.
Get my screen shared here 1 second. Okay, this is on page 42. This is the Rolfson rezone, REZ 22-12. It's at 4851 North Kinzer Pike. We've heard this one several times now. At the last plan commission meeting on February 21st. I presented an updated report with additional exhibits submitted by the petitioner, as well as letters from the opposed opposition from a few neighbors. During that meeting, the petitioner provided a presentation that covered a number of concerns, including traffic, among other things like details pertaining to the proposed site plan and structures, as well as some of the commercial activity going on at the winery. At that meeting, Planning Commission members requested that the petitioner prepare a written draft commitment and a list of uses that the petitioner would be comfortable with striking from the Ag RR use table. And the Planning Commission voted 7-2 to continue the petition to the March 21st Planning Commission regular meeting in order to provide time for the petitioner to prepare said documents. If you look at Exhibit 10 in the packet, that is the current draft written commitment. The petitioner did state that he hasn't had time for his attorney to look that over, but it hopefully will generate good discussion this evening. Anywhere in the packet you see red text, that's new information that's been included in the packet for the upcoming March 21st Planning Commission regular meeting. So I will go to page 80, which is the commitment. I'll open up for any questions.
Just a couple of other things I had, on section 3B. There won't be a recording of the final plat for this, correct?
That is correct, since it is a rezone and that it is a
And then, you know,
site plan.
I think staff and petition did a nice job putting it together. I'm not picking it apart at all, but they're just things I saw. So under 4, the amusement and recreational, is that automotive and transportation?
Which number again? I'm sorry.
Number 4,
Section, oh, number 4.
on page 81.
Right. There is a use category in the table. I believe that the category is amusement and recreational, and that particular use is listed there.
Okay, that's right. I didn't see it in the table, and recreational vehicle RV park is under automotive and transportation, so I don't know if that was.
Where this table is in.
Use table is on page 64. I noted the same thing.
It looks like the header has possibly been removed.
Yeah, I'll double
Because-
check with that.
Yeah, RV park, private recreation facility park, those are all. Recreation category.
The exhibit you see on the screen, that is staff generated to just show all the uses that are permitted or conditional in the zone. So it's not indicative of the same exhibit that's in chapter 802. So I'll double check to make sure it's.
Any other questions for Drew?
I will state that the petitioner is here this evening, so if there are any questions for him, or if you would like to see any additional uses removed from this particular zoning district, or have any other comments regarding the written commitment and its drafting, that tonight's a good time to express that, so that there's enough time for him to work with his attorneys to get that document prepared, so that we get this done the next meeting.
Are there any questions for the petitioner? Seeing none.
I have a few.
I'm sorry, does the planning commission need to vote on whether they wanted to take public comment? It usually takes public comment at the administrative meetings.
So I made the motion last time and I was more focused on the uses, and then the operational guidelines were presented. And I guess as you put this together, obviously you submitted it, but how did you come with the time frame 11 a.m. until 7 p.m.? That just seemed like a prime thing. Were you like trying to give a little for this discussion? I'm just trying to make sure that all of this is real comfortable, because my main concern is the use, is not really the operational component.
Yeah, sure, and I appreciate the question, I understand. Part of our commitment was to be a good neighbor to people in that area, the other homeowners, and quite frankly, I surveyed tasting rooms from California to New York and in and around the state. And these seem to be pretty standard operating hours, some put a little sooner, some on occasion put a little bit later than that. For me, I would like to be buttoned up by 7 o'clock and go home and be with my wife and family. And if you've got younger people there, how practical is it to assume that they're not going to want to get out of there on the thing after 7 o'clock? So, and again, just to kind of keep things in check, there may be situations where we have an event and perhaps it's not going to take up the patio at the winery itself. But it may go on later than 7 o'clock, but it won't necessarily be attached to the retail hours of the operating hour prior to that.
And I'm just gonna make a reminder that this is not a public record setting. That's why we don't normally take comments from the public. And so just that's not in the record. It's a comment though.
Sure.
Yeah, this is a public meeting and anything said here is on the public record, but it's not a hearing.
Okay, thanks, Derek.
Okay, any other comments before we move on?
Just one more. Is there any that you would are kind of 50-50 on here that,
As far as uses are concerned,
as far as the operational?
well, honestly, I would prefer not to even put any of this in here because I think businesses have to be fluid in how they work. Is more or less just an attempt to show good faith on our part that it's not our goal to, turn this into an amusement park that's going to drive the neighbors nuts. I owned a business for 37 years and, I got a pretty good sense in doing that of, responsibility. Trust that it's going to be a hospitality business. But we didn't want to create a big disturbance. I wanted to be a rural setting.
Right.
So this was mainly just an explanation, but I don't want to be thrown. Again, businesses evolve and change over time.
And that's kind of where I'm at, and I don't like the restraint that it's under. I personally would have supported it with just a reduction of the potential uses and
That's
none
why
of
I
the guidelines of the operational
Well,
use. I do think there's some merit to it, maybe. But ultimately, I introduced that as a friendly amendment just because I thought that would move the project forward. Ultimately, we move this as a recommendation to the common council or to the, you can see I was at the planning commission, city planning commission last night, to the county commissioners. But just personally, I would be comfortable with something that's highly more flexible and fluent to have kind of a optimal approach to operating a business like this. So that's
Are
just
you talking about
where
the
I'm at.
time, Tron, or are you
It's
talking
the
about?
time.
Okay.
The time, it's just seems odd a little bit.
I agree with that.
Okay, are there any more questions for Drew or any more comments?
I have a comment and Ron's gonna be surprised that I agree with him again. But having grown up in the hospitality industry, I'm concerned about the time, but mostly. I think the neighbors do not want to have something in writing that they're going to count on and then possibly deviate from that. I think they want a very firm expectation. So there would be maybe several events during the year that would last later. Then that later time should be the time reference. With the qualification that most events will be concluding at X hour rather than latest possible time. I just don't want the neighbors to have an expectation that differs in any way from what you.
whether it's a private or a tasting.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Drew. Moving on to new business tonight, and I think this one's yours, PUO -23-2, PUO-23-2, North Park PUD outline plan amendment number 5, change to section 8th Street and alternative transportation guidelines.
Okay, have an overview of this. So this is for, the petitioner is the Monroe County Redevelopment Commission, / Crider and Crider Inc. So this would be for a road construction for a connecting street between North Curry Pike along here and also West Hunter Valley Road. So they've been working on this for a little while now, and they've come up with a solid design for the connection road, a bridge that crosses floodplain. And I mean, with that, they've been working to figure out how to secure the right of way in this area. In order to move forward with the proposed construction, we've on a timeline that is available for what they've already established. We are bringing a outline plan amendment to the North Park ordinance. And at the same time, a plan unit development plan. We also have petitions for the floodplain permit that would be issued and the grading permit at the same time. So generally, to amend the North Park ordinance, we'd be looking at a minimum 3-month timeline. We've expedited this, and we're hoping to attend the planning commission and the plan review committee just this month. Well, they have requested a waiver of the final hearing by planning commission, which would be next month, if not granted. Okay. So I'm sure a lot of people are familiar. A large portion of this area is the North Park planned unit development. So here, See on the screen, this is the road connection that we're looking at here. There are a few things that don't quite match what they've, what the construction plans they've designed that match the zoning ordinance. A few things just off the top of my head are the zoning ordinance actually gave a road classification. Thoroughfare plan by the highway departments, so some things are kind of small for the road construction. Changing required speed limit. The North Park ordinance requires 40 miles per hour. Their design is suggesting 30. So they've been working closely with highway department for quite a while and have agreed on these construction plans. They're very large, so they are included as a link in your packet, and I urge you to explore those before the next meeting. We also have exhibit 3 is a very consolidated view of the whole construction area and the right of way that's being proposed. So the right of way in general is required to be 120 feet wide for this section. In reality, it didn't quite go that way. So there's the majority of the area. My apologies. It's required to be 140. Most of the areas, and some areas they were able to obtain 105 feet where they had owned the adjoining land. Once it transitions into West Hunter Valley and there's different property owners, around the highest that they end up having is about 90 feet of right of way. And then one property owner, which we can see right here, if that right of way was taken, the structure would be in right of way. So they're proposing a bump out around the structure of as small as 60 feet. So those are some of the considerations for the road construction. Now, because they are already requesting an amendment to the outline plan, they are also including some changes that they feel are appropriate for this area. That includes edits to the street and transportation guidelines of the North Park ordinance. So there are, in order to develop certain properties in the North Park area, there are triggers for road construction. So there are 3 roads that they are proposing on removing from being required by the ordinance. And I just go through those one by one. So this first one would be a connector road from West Arlington down to 46. This area is physically constrained simply because this property owned by the petitioner is 35 feet wide. Yeah, so not necessarily it's constrained. It's up to the petitioners to explain and argue why they're requesting this, but in general, staff supports the removal of this road just based on the design of the lot. The second road that would be removed is connecting North Stone Branch Drive to Stony Brook Drive to North Stone Branch Drive. So this is just an approximation based on ordinance. And the third road is a connecting road that would go from North Stone Branch Drive south, looping, and then going north and connecting to Hunter Valley Road. This one we absolutely support. There have been environmental studies of what the road construction here would take. This is an old quarry with open pits, so it would take significant amount of work in order to stabilize that area to create a road. Okay. I'm just going to reorient myself here what I need to discuss. Okay. So the exhibit number 2 are the exact pages that would be changed. And so we've used a Microsoft Word format and the petitioner has, and showing exactly what they would edit in the ordinance. So if these changes were approved, we would take these pages and put it into 100+ page ordinance of North Park. Okay. I do want to navigate here a little bit. Should have had this pulled up for you earlier. But I would like to show you the area of neighbor notice for this petition. So we are expediting the hearings by the Plan Commission. That is just an administrative decision. We are still meeting all state statute requirements for public notice. So we are required to notice. Can't speak, I think, at the same time, so. Navigate for a second. Okay, adjacent property owners, stakeholders required to be noticed 10 days within the first public hearing. So that would be the Planning Commission on March 21st. So just today I sent out approximately 140, not approximately, exactly 143 letters. So everybody here will be noticed within 10 days. Some of these properties are not highlighted in blue because they're owned by the petitioner. This is not even fully comprehensive because we ended up adding some properties here where that road to the north, small segment, would be removed. So there's even property owners across the street that were not. So there are also petition signs here along 46 and North Quarry Pike, and also at Arlington and West Hunter Valley Road. So it should be getting pretty good visibility. So that's a quick overview. I do have one point that was not included in the report that we should probably either discuss here today or discuss in the next meeting, which is that road name changes are reviewed and approved by the Plan Commission. And the Assistant Director pointed out today that we would be connecting North Curry Pike, which has a significantly longer section of the road that has a lot of addresses, to North Hunter Valley, West Hunter Valley Road, and that the Planning Commission may want to consider approving a road change with this petition. There are 4 addresses on West Hunter Valley Road. So overall, staff is going to be recommending a positive recommendation for this plan unit outline plan amendment and plan unit development plan with the following edit. We are requesting that the petitioner develop language to include in a North Park ordinance that would require the construction of a cul-de-sac at the southern end of North Stone Branch Drive. So we realize with the removal of this road, if this is approved, removing this road connector, this North Stone Branch Drive, which is already constructed, is stubbed and dead ends at a property line. So we're requesting and proposing that the petitioner write up some language to include in the ordinance where there's some developmental trigger that requires cul-de-sac to finalize that into that road, and we see that often it's for emergency services so they can. Okay, I know that was a lot. What kind of questions does everybody have for me?
Just I've been following the RDC and Mr. Cassidy's here, which is nice. But they're looking at this as a potential TIF extension too for residential TIF use in this area. And, you know, I think it's nice to kind of loop some of this together because some things, there's multiple things in play. So I guess this is strictly looking at the infrastructure and the roads, right? It's really all I have to say. So if you're not familiar with the proposed or following the discussion of the residential TIF, I would be curious if, you know, planning would like to provide an update. I know Jackie has been there and spoke in regards to their future use and things. So it would be nice just to kind of have that full discussion of kind of what we're looking at here as some redevelopment projects, but ultimately how that conversation is going on with the potential extension of the TIF in for the residential use. It's just a lot of moving parts, and it'd be cool to get an update on the other one. So not anything that relates to this necessarily, but I guess an update with the other part of it with the TIF extension discussion. there was supposed to be a letter, I don't know if Richard ever got around to sending it, but they were gonna send it to planning or the planning commissioners, not too sure. So. That's it.
Other comments?
Or go ahead, don't defer to you.
Quick question, so where the road was, the yellow road, the yellow brick road.
Which one?
Yeah, I'm gonna go to half acre there. So so what's gonna happen in that segment there where there was road frontage on that property, but it's not same type of road frontage? Or proposed?
What's proposed there?
Yeah, what's in that void? Was that always an open area? Was that always, I can't remember from all the iterations of it.
Okay, so what uses were in this area?
I'm just curious, yeah, I'm curious, is that there was a road that went through there, so potentially there were gonna be uses along that floor without a roadway. Some of those uses I would assume will not exist.
Absolutely hit me with your questions because I will need to research this North Park. You're all familiar, it's a big ordinance, has a lot of nuances, so.
Is that not the area the county bought to turn into a park? Yes.
This old quarry site is owned by the county commissioners. They've explored putting in some kind of open space here. I don't think they've committed to any.
Okay, that's directly to one of my questions.
Yeah, well, I was thinking, I should probably look into what North Park had designated this area.
Yes,
So is it 736 single family detached homes? What is being
Go back.
requested?
There is no use being requested at this time. Yep. The PUO amendment and the PUD. Oh, okay, how about this? The PUD is solely for the construction of the road. The PUO, I could say that, but now they're proposing removing some of these connector roads, so it's not solely for the construction.
In the packet, it says that there is a planned development for 736 maximum number of detached single family units. Am I wrong?
What page?
It's 140, I think 141. That might be the
Yes.
next petition.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the next one. Okay, sorry. Sorry.
Question?
Yes, I do. When I think about the proposal of Road Street here, I can't help but think about, and I realize petitioner is not necessarily responsible for this occurrence, nor is the county, but the Atlas apartment, whatever all is in that off of Arlington Road, huge development. When you open those roads through North Park property off of Arlington Road, you have to anticipate significantly more traffic than what's going to be generated by the development. Is the pressure on those roads is going to be absolutely incredible. Not to mention the impact that it's having on Arlington Road or will. You know, so you need longer deceleration, acceleration. You know, there's just tremendous impact is going to happen because of that. We just don't even see the consequences of that development at this time.
That Telluride has 300 units or 1,000 beds, whichever they're measure we're looking at.
So a part of the reclassification, normally we wouldn't particularly want to see a PUD ordinance that has such detailed road standards, really, because it was up to highway. One of the things that we're changing for this road construction is a reclassification. So our North Park ordinance that originally designated it as a minor arterial boulevard secondary arterial. And one of these changes is to change it to a major collector.
Well, I was here when all this went through, like from day one of this. The Atlas development, Telluride Drive, did not exist, and it was not even a consideration for the county when we looked at these roadways. All I am suggesting is that when we look at these roadways, we cannot fail to anticipate increased traffic load from a development on Arlington Road that's not part of the county.
what can I do to help answer that concern?
I think having a statement from the RDC, I mean, they should be looking at that because they're allocating money for what's within that TIF and the infrastructure. I'm kind of curious if it even branches out that far, the TIF district. And I'm curious if this is one of the TIFs that we're looking to actually have some type of debt on it moving forward, which is just a nuanced question. But
But you know,
sorry, I'm not trying to answer your question. I'm saying that would be things that I would like to hear.
right, I think that when you look at our design standards for them are based on what they are doing. So I think highway needs to talk to petitioners and look at the true anticipated traffic load, however they do that. You know, I don't know. If I knew how to do all that, I wouldn't be on the plan commission. I'd work in the highway department, you know, but as someone who's recently retired, you know, if we're gonna build that to like a 30-mile-an-hour standard, I would like to have a concession on speeding tickets through there, and I can just live on speeding tickets for the rest of my life, because it's not gonna happen unless you design a road that really has traffic calming built into it. And removal of street trees from the plan is removing a known calming device as well.
Paul has done a fair amount of work on this. Paul, would you have anything, comment or statement that might address Larry?
Yeah, sure. The basic pavement width is going to be 28 feet wide. Yeah, as they mentioned, design speed of 30 miles an hour, and that's because of not only the horizontal geometry there, especially that curve at as you approach Arlington. That's going to be a 4% super elevated curve, and you go more than 30 miles an hour, you'll come off the road. So kind of self-enforcing there of the speed limit. Plus the vertical alignment, because it's so rolling there, is limited to a 30-mile-an-hour design speed due to the grades and the vertical curves and the sight distance restrictions.
Is this the same designer that did the off ramp or the exit for 39 off of 69, where they've plowed through the sign several times now?
No, hopefully not. And your restrictions to capacity would be at the intersections at Arlington, where we've got actually two lanes, a left turn lane and a right turn lane coming off of the Hunter Valley Road. So that provides good capacity there. And then as it approaches State Road 46, they've got multiple lane approach there as well. So it should be able to handle quite a bit of traffic without any issue.
Good, that's fine. And sometimes those plans are really difficult to see on a computer. So I wasn't sure what all was in that, but I do know that that's a situation that I wanted to be sure was considered. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, sure.
They are difficult to read, so if anybody wants, I have multiple versions that have been completely taped together in the planning department that you can see.
I would just ask maybe adding a map or overlay of just the TIF district, since this is kind of a redevelopment project.
My understanding is that there's not a TIF district.
Oh, they're,
Not established yet.
It's
well,
Talked about,
they're
but-
doing here, there's the existing one, correct? And it's talking about splitting it into, well, oh, there's a layer, I'm looking at one.
I'll look at it.
Okay, and it defines the area where this money can go, so I think it's helpful.
Any other questions or comments for Ann?
Yeah, I've got a quick question, if I might.
Yes,
This
please
is
go
Julie.
ahead.
Thank you. I was wondering if it'd be possible for the planning staff to dig through all the files and find the original, well, the last updated PUD for North Park, and just put a link in the packet for it. It's been a long time since we've done North Park, so I think it'd be good for me to review some things.
I agree, that would be helpful.
Julie, do you mean the most current ordinance for North Park?
Yeah, the most current, the most recent version. Yes, thank you.
Okay, so that is linked, that is exhibit 6.
Oh, it is Exhibit 6. Okay, I thought it was partial. So that's the full thing, right?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. You're way ahead. Thank you so much.
Questions for Ann? Thank you, Ann. Moving on to our next list. Into the Wylie Farm at Fieldstone Tract F PUO. Sandy?
Thank you. So this petition site is located off of South Kirby Drive in the Van Buren Township. The site is 30.23 more or less acres and is undeveloped. It is part of the Wylie Farm at Fieldstone PUD. And the petitioner is requesting a planned unit development outline plan amendments to propose the following items. 1, a new road configuration and different triggers for completing the roadway. 2, removal of buffer yard / open space for purposes of rerouting the roadway. And 3, to propose the first phase in tract F. Let me try and get a better picture. Propose the first phase in tract F that would contain 1 use of convenience storage and adjust the remaining density per unit for the remainder of area F, which is zoned for high density residential. This was presented to the plan review committee and their feedback was as follows. At 1, develop the petition, well, with their feedback, the petitioner proposes to 1, develop only the 3.34 acre portion of tract F for convenience storage. No residential use permitted on the 3.34 acre tract. Well, the remainder of the lot will remain single family residential and be developed as such. 2, after further study, they plan to give the commercial site a maximum of 65% impervious surface. Also, the remainder for the single family lots of 26.22 acres will have a max of 40% impervious surface. This would include the road network and the calculation for the 26.22 acre remainder area. 3, the petitioner would like to commit to treating the entirety of the 3.34 acre convenience storage commercial lot and a pond to meet the post-development critical watershed values. Also, the entire road network to be treated in the ponds to meet the post-development critical watershed values. And 4, verify their request to only 1 use option in the 3.34 acre property of convenience storage as defined in chapter 802 of the Monroe County Ordinance. Originally, when this was first presented to the Plan Review Commission, they were proposing, I believe, around 34 additional uses for this lot, but they have since rolled back on that and have gone to 1 use, which is convenience storage. There were some. This petition has not been reviewed by the Drainage Board. The Drainage Board was planning to meet on March 1st, but that meeting was canceled. And as for the highway engineer, they had the following comments made. Roadways are to meet county design in terms of width, curb, and gather, pavement section, and no trees. No trees located between the curb and sidewalk. Stub streets are not allowed and temporary cul-de-sacs are required at roadway ends. Slight distance needs to be checked at the roadway intersection with Kirby Road. Acceleration and deceleration tapers will be required at the intersection as a minimum. Left turn lane or passing blister may be needed on Kirby Road at the intersection, depending on traffic volumes. One of the conditions for the Plan Review Committee was for the petitioner to present a broader site plan showing not only tracts F, which is around this area here, but also their plans for tracts G and I, And the petitioner has done so along with their proposed phase developments, planning staff prior to the plan commission meeting. There was a question whether, given the Carson analysis, there's been some decisions about reducing the housing density in the remainders of this property, which you can see in this area here. And that the PRC would like the MS4 coordinator to review the CAR study and hydrology report prior to the plan commission meeting. We have not received comments from the MS4 coordinator at this time. And so are there any questions?
I'll just jump in. I don't have too many. This did come to the drainage board for discussion.
It did come to a drainage board for discussion prior to the PRC meeting.
Correct. And all I was going to say is it would be. So does this procedurally need to go back to the drainage board? Or, I mean, I think that's kind of a here and there type situation. So I would be very curious of kind of waiting until the drainage board can convene. The reason it was canceled was a lack of in-person quorum. So there was a great discussion. This is next to the Fieldstone Dam, which Council Member Munson maybe can remember the commitment that the council had, I'm not sure if that came out of general fund or not, but the county had to put some money to helping to address some of the issues. And I really want to make sure that what we're looking at isn't exacerbating anything. And also if there's any way we could address issues that have presented themselves because of future development, because they are asking for amendment, and this is our opportunity to maybe help improve the conditions that are out there. Some of the discussion was preserving some of the trees on in certain areas and on steep slopes, but I think that's already kind of in our ordinance to a certain extent, or within this outline. That's kind of my take. I know Kelsey's here, and if she wants to tackle this all on her own, I would recommend that we continue this to a date where after the drainage board could meet. And I'm not sure if we couldn't necessarily do that here today, but maybe at our regular meeting. And I guess the petitioner might be listening, so if they have any issues with that they need us to kind of immediately address this and wouldn't have an issue with us continuing it, I'd like to hear from them too at our regular meeting, unless they're allowed to speak today. Sorry, Gary, I just wanted to finish that.
That's fine.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Thank you. When this came to plan review, I was at the meeting. My concern about this was that when they came, they were just talking about the storage units, and I don't know if there's what I see is adjacent development with lots of condominiums. So the idea of storage is something that is viable. But what I told petitioner was it didn't seem appropriate to me to say, we just want to throw some storage units up here. We don't know what we're going to do with the rest of it, but this is what we want to do right now. So, and I had a brief discussion with them as we walked out. This is not prime cut. This is hamburger meat here in development terms. This is not the good part of this development. So he's bought the shank here, and he's trying to make something out of it that serves a purpose for residential and make some money. And I even told him, I said, look, that's an area where we need to think about getting some density. We need to think about affordable homes. And I walked away from it. And what I look at right here is he went back to square one and has brought something before us that addresses the county need and his need. And while the zoning may not necessarily, or the comprehensive plan may not necessarily support storage units, I don't know anywhere in the comprehensive plans you're going to find language that supports storage units.
Yeah.
We have a lot, yeah.
So, when you look at it, we have an opportunity to control storage units here, put them in a place where they actually make sense.
Yeah.
And help the developer develop his property and make money off the storage, and maybe not have to focus on making so much money off of the homes. You know, because the storage is ongoing revenue, you know, possibly. So anyway, I just wanted to say, from my perspective as a member of the plan review, this petitioner has come back and has delivered on what I asked of him as a plan review member. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you for giving me that opportunity.
Thank you. I think that insight is helpful because that is different than what we discussed at the plan review committee. So thank you. Any other comments or questions for Daniel?
I just want to make sure I understand this. We're just talking about the storage units, right? Not the rest of it. He did put the storage units in some context by presenting this proposal.
Yes, none of this that you see here was really included at plan review stage. The residential portion.
I think the ordinance previously allowed for a very specific amount of residential density. And I think there was request to see, well, how is the density going to be impacted? What's going to be left over by developing these storage units? How much are you taking away from multifamily residential, which is permitted up there in that area?
Yeah.
And so they redistributed. Daniel has a table in here about, you know, what the unit per acre change is going to be as a result.
I had another quick question too. I don't see a petition sign on Kirby when I go by there. At least I don't recall seeing it last time. I was
That might not be on Kirby, might just be on Fields.
Is there not one on Kirby? Is there
was-
not required to put one on Kirby?
There was one when I went to take site photos of it before the PRC meeting.
Was
Okay,
it on Kirby or was it on the Fieldstone?
It was on the Fieldstone side because that's where the access was going to be.
okay. Well, this will have a connection to Kirby, so,
It doesn't have
No,
front,
correct.
this petition site does not have frontage.
okay, so it's, the sign is only where the frontage is.
Mhm.
Because I was thinking about the back portion of it. You know, because it will let out on Kirby at some point, right? I mean, that was the discussion.
Mhm.
There's another parcel between this site and Kirby.
Right, okay, all right, so, and I think the same petitioner may own that parcel, but I'm not sure. All right, that makes sense, so we're all good, thank you.
Quick comment, but when I saw this at the PRC, the storage units make perfect sense to me because I think it's gonna be more of a regional area where the end users are gonna be people that are gonna be in that neighborhood. And people are gonna be traveling a far distance to go try to find something somewhere else. I think the storage units, you know, the lifestyles, I think, are depending on them more, for whatever reason. But I do think putting some sort of context to relieve some of Jerry's questions on what the density was gonna look like. Because he felt there was a loss of density. It was a good tool that the petitioners did that. And then kind of put it in context of the areas that were somewhat undeveloped. And really, you couldn't see it with the other.
Just as a responsible
Hang on
plan.
a second. So so with the road layout and just kind of seeing what the cause and effect would be of the mapped karst features and how that's laid out, I just think he's done a nice job putting it together. Let us see what we can put our hands on, so.
I think Tron had a comment and then Margaret.
Well, a question, and I was about to answer, but is this the full extent of that PUD?
No, this is a section of the larger Fieldstone.
Okay, could you do your best of trying to attempt to do an outline? I'm gonna bring up the zoning on my own over here. Yeah, that probably.
Oh, no, I'm just saying like in the. report.
Oh, wow, that's a big PUD. Anyone else want to see it? So my question is, if we allow this use, then it doesn't just, it's not contained in this particular parcel, is it? Or is it for the whole PUD?
This is an amendment to the Willie Farm, which is just a section of the greater Fieldstone PUD.
So it is contained within that parcel,
Yes.
more or less. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. That was kind of a looming question I had. But I think it's relevant because this use could be asked for other parts of this PUD. Especially, you know, as we heard stated that a few feel like this is a reasonable use and the market could benefit from it. But it could morph that whole area into something different as well. So I'm still kind of considering the impacts. Some of the questions I had at the drainage board that I do think Daniel had put in here was some impervious surface calculations to kind of what the housing would look like there versus maybe these garage spaces.
Yes, that was part of the petitioner's comments.
I guess, you know, I just wanted to point it out because it looked like the garage space is a reduction of the impervious surface, which is what I would like to see from a stormwater standpoint. Now, is the petitioner able to make different proposed amendments to the entire PUD? Or where I'm going with this is, I'm really curious of what their intended use is moving forward with that PUD if we allow this one particular use in the middle, because it's like almost creating a PUD containing a PUD. You know,
So right now it's divided into like different areas. Track F and G and I are within this specific parcel that the petitioner owns. And so this, you know, there are lists of uses for what's allowed in these. Was that road plan that you can see overlaid here doesn't quite fit with what is there now and built out. So yes, they're very targeting like F and G and I, like with what they're recommending as far as residential density and then adding that use for convenience storage. So it doesn't impact the whole PUD unless you think of the road design kind of making that interconnectedness in the future potentially.
well, it's changing the character a bit. And yeah, I guess my question's kind of hard to answer because it's not the same owner. So thank you. I just have those comments and again, I encourage us looking at this at the drainage board and then bringing it back. We're just looking at drainage issues, not necessarily kind of what should be constructed there.
Margaret, Jerry, and Cheryl.
I think Cheryl actually was before me.
Okay.
I'm looking at page 118, the air photo overlay with the lots on it. And I'm just curious as to what is proposed to be built on these numbered lots. Because I look at the adjacent Fieldstone residential area. And I don't think Fieldstone has a mansion necessarily. But the roof outlines just don't seem to fit on these lots.
Those are, I will say those aren't bigger houses.
They are.
I'm talking from the fact that I was looking at one of those when I moved to county.
Well,
They are like,
pretty big.
in terms of, they're closer to the 3,000 or more
Okay.
square footage kind of thing, and that's not including basements. So
Yeah.
they're not necessarily small residential houses, you know, I'm sure there's some that are in the 2,500 ballpark. But yeah, they're not.
Because these are long skinny
Yeah.
lots.
Some of them might have basements eventually.
Some of them show about 60 feet.
Uh-huh.
Second, there's a couple that are like they're 40, 45 feet.
I'm thinking shotgun house,
So it looks like a.
but I see those lots. So.
Well, you know, just in terms of planning, responsible planning, I'd like to know how many storage units we have in the area, because I'm thinking about this use. And even though it was said I'd rather have storage units than garages, I'm thinking, well, garages would be really useful to the homeowner. You know, especially if they want a gardener, if they have a mower or something like that, and I know from driving up and down Curry Pike and that there are a lot of storage units out there, and I don't know if they're all used or if they're all built. Up there on the corner of Curry Pike and West Bloomfield Road, there's another storage facility that has not yet been built. And I kind of, that's one area in our planning that we don't really have an active inventory on. And I don't know exactly, I mean, it's stated in somewhere that this is maybe for a student population, but people who are living in these homes are gonna be there year round. They're not gonna be leaving in May and returning in August to attend school. They'll be there year round if they're graduate students. Or if they're working hopefully to cook, that they would have a home and hopefully maybe a garage, so they don't have to be late to work when they go out there and scrape their car in the winter, or get hail damage on their car. So I would just, from a responsible land management perspective, just like to know, is this the best ultimate use of this land, and how many storage units do we have in Bloomington, and are they all being used? And I just have more questions than answers at this point.
Do you want to include city jurisdiction storage units as well as county jurisdiction?
I mean, if Curry Pike is in the city on the east side, yeah, that's within like a half mile to a mile radius of this particular development.
The one on Johnson Drive in Curry,
I think so.
that's our jurisdiction.
That's ours. Okay. That's good.
There's also one by Ivy Tech.
Yes, yes. And then there's one over there by Pine Yorkers probably as well. So I just don't know what we're looking at from. I do know all of those homeowners, if they're gonna live in the city, they're gonna want a mower, they're gonna want to have a bucket, they're gonna wanna have, a shovel. And they're gonna wanna have things like that so they can grow their tomatoes, which Indiana is famous for.
It's got a Jerry next to the truck.
Oh, I just wanted to clarify when I said garage, I meant storage unit, so I'm not sure. I was not sure if you were referring to me. I think I accidentally said garage space and I meant storage unit. So, and from a stormwater impact, I wasn't saying that I would like to see storage units versus homes. I said that impervious surface is ideal to have. So, just wanted to clarify that.
And I just wanted to ask staff to be sure and send a thank you note to the city of Bloomington. Every time we deal with Fieldstone, we should send them a thank you note for allowing us to come back into our jurisdiction. We are so grateful to have had the opportunity to deal with this development after the city of Bloomington approved it back in '94. Thank you very much. 30 years later, here we are.
There are 3,300 units going in at the corner of Park Square Drive and West 3rd Street. Just keep that in mind. 300. Okay.
Oh, and by the way, this goes all the way back to my first run on the planning commission back in 2001, 2002, somewhere around there. Yeah. So I've been dealing with deals. So this is one I'll be glad to see built out. Thank you, Jeff, for allowing me to.
Well, in 1994, 1995, there was a proposal for this to be 1 acre.
That's the good.
Well, it was the parts from the drainage that has just been the nightmare for the county from the original dealings that we had with it. So hopefully that'll all settle down and we won't have to deal with it anymore.
If I may add, and I will not pretend to be a knowledgeable economical impact person. But I will make a comment that having been a person seeking a house in that particular area, not but 2 months ago, the airport is just leaps and bounds away. And runway 1735 is right there. And anybody in the pattern, which is a jet runway, so, and growing as Cook has, or BMG has created quite an establishment on the airport there. And that is why there was, I know for a fact from the homeowner that was selling, that is part of why they sold from the Fieldstone, is that the name of
Just feel stuff.
was because the noise has grown. So in terms of economical impact, I can't see the houses that are being added closer to airport having as much of a payout to the general community as say something like storage units that is not noise dependent, you know, so similar to the same concepts of being supporting, I think that that is a great land use when you're not noise dependent. So, but again, I'm not an economical impact specialist in any way, so.
You make a great point, and there is airport noise zone that are you pulling that up? If not, maybe in
I will pull it up right now.
next
I
meeting.
am having,
Good point. They just redid that too, and we just got that not so long ago.
Can we change the name of this from Fieldstone to Millstone, like a millstone about your neck?
Yeah.
Albatross. So I can't highlight the petition site, but this is the petition site here. Where I'm hovering, and Fieldstone Boulevard is the blue.
Oh,
And you can see that hatch mark over the airport, and that's the airport noise sensitivity zone. We had one.
It's real quiet outside of that. Rural living outside of that, no worries.
Yeah. And I was gonna say, with regards to density, just to the north, here's the petition site, and just to the north and east, you have these like little condos that have these smaller lots here. So just pointing out that density that does exist nearby.
So with the shared wall,
Yes.
okay, that makes a big difference.
Shared patio homes, maybe
Shared
is what that's
patio.
called, or shared town. I don't know what the stories are there.
But that makes sense.
Mhm.
It's right there.
Any other questions for Daniel? I can't see our participants on Zoom, so please speak up if anybody on Zoom has a question.
Did we want to hear from Kelsey regarding the potential drainage or any drain developments on the site?
Sure, if Kelsey has anything to add, please speak up.
Sure, hi. I've done quite a bit of work looking into this parcel. As you know, it drains to the Cave Creek sinkhole to the west past the airport. So we do have much more stringent regulations for any new development in this area. A portion of the site on the east side does drain to the north to the Fieldstone Regional Detention Pond. So development on the eastern portion of this site will be a little bit simpler. The rest of the site does drain south of the pond, and I've done quite a bit of work trying to find some information on this since we discussed this at the Drainage Board's February meeting. We had some concerns about previous development, potentially diverting runoff, approaching the spillway of the dam. From what I found, this proposed development here is meant to drain south of the Fieldstone Dam. I think there is still some research to be done on this, but from what I found, the drainage should go south of the dam. So they will need to provide detention for most of the site. Now they are proposing that their ponds will meet the critical drainage release rates, and that will hold back more water than is currently being shed from the site. So for most rain events, we'll see a decrease in runoff from the site. That's pretty substantial. We did a 2017 study of this watershed, and what they found as far as what this stream can handle, what the sinkhole can handle, is incredibly comparable to these release rates. So they are right on track with what this watershed can handle. So I have some recommendations I'm going to take to the Drainage Board on this. we're gonna look at the CARS report, the road layout and any potential impacts to sinkhole features and hydrology on the site. I may ask for a wetland delineation on this site as well. I know it's a lot of prior cropland, but I think it would be good since these soils are pretty wet here. And adding in additional stormwater facilities in the sites to try and reduce the drainage areas of the ponds that are being proposed. You know, right now we don't have a full preliminary drainage plan, but these are things that I'm going to want to see on the site. And we'll also talk about the impervious surface coverage. Typically, I really don't set regulations on amount of impervious. It's really controlled by your design standards for the detention. So they will have quite a bit of space taken up by the detention ponds on the site. But we will discuss the feasibility and all of that with the proposed impervious surface coverage. So this will go to the April 5th Drainage Board meeting, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Kelsey? Thank you, Kelsey. That was helpful. Further questions for Daniel? I think that was our last item. Tammy, do you have any reports for us tonight?
We need to make a motion on whether. Okay.
We have a motion for adjournment.
Yeah. Great.
Thank you. Thanks.
I looked up. We've been learning. You are the one for doing before.